it's been a space over the last 2 years where I've met amazing humans and amazing women. I'm very grateful to be here in this conversation. My name is Danya Pastuszek. I use she, her pronouns. I am a mother. I am the ancestor, daughter, granddaughter of amazing women and men of Ukrainian heritage and of Jewish heritage. I am a community builder. I am someone who believes deeply in the power of place and what can happen when people come together across different sectors and different experiences in their neighborhoods and cities to affect great change and leverage the gifts and the beauty that's in every community. And I am currently in the position of co-CEO at Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement, which builds the skills and the very practical partnerships around collaboration to affect equity at the community level. Thanks again for the opportunity to be with all of you.
Thank you. And Camara, you can give your introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Camara Chambers. My pronouns are she and her. I'm based here in Toronto, Toronto, home to many, many Indigenous people, including the Mississaugas of the New Credit, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe as well. My role is I'm the Director of Leadership Development at the Dais at Toronto Metropolitan University. The Dais is a think tank. We do lots of work in the realms of public policy and leadership. We focus on areas like AI, cybersecurity, democracy and trust, and education and skills. And my team lead up all of our leadership programs. So we teach people how to be leaders, but most importantly, how to influence the laws and the regulations and the policies that govern our everyday lives. Before I started this role, I was working in the university in career development. Many of my careers have always had aspects of career development and leadership development in them. And then before that, I spent 7 years working at Volunteer Toronto. And I actually see colleagues, Otis Mashunga, in this room. So hi, Otis. Hope you're doing well. Outside of work, I'm very passionate about raising up young women and young people of color. I'm on the strategic advisory committee of a career accelerator called Accelerate Her Future, which focuses on helping young women who identify as Black, Indigenous, or racialized to enter into the STEM fields, as well as the business and tech fields as well. I run my own nonprofit, which I started during the pandemic. I really love the outdoors. I don't sound or look like someone who might love the outdoors, but I love the Canadian outdoors. Being here in Canada has really converted me. And I run a nonprofit called Let's Hike to Go. We run very affordable, local, safe hikes around the city and also outside of Toronto, helping newcomers, BIPOC folks, and young people get into hiking and find ways to connect to the outdoors in a safe way. And I am originally from London, England. So if you recognize my accent, that's why. But I have been living in Toronto for about 13 years now. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, especially with this weather today. It's cold and snowy.
It's horrific.
Well, I hope are you going to be taking anybody on hikes?
Maybe not today, maybe when the weather's a little bit warmer, but we do brave the cold weather, shockingly. I don't know why we do.
Okay. And next we have Joanne. Can I please get an introduction?
Hey, thanks. Joanne Fedeyko, originally from Alberta, so really can relate to cold weather, but have been in San Francisco Bay Area for 25 years. And for 10 of the last years, I've been helping to connect Canadian entrepreneurs into Silicon Valley and the tech ecosystem here. In 2017, we started an initiative called the Canadian Women's Network to support Canadian female entrepreneurs across all sectors. We run a signature program here called Pathway to Silicon Valley, which brings 25 entrepreneurs down here for 3 immersive days where we network them, introduce them to venture capital, mentors, and really get immersed into this space so that they can build some networks here and nurture them on their own for their own growth and the growth of their business in the future. So we run that program twice a year. And we have an online community of over 900 Canadian women entrepreneurs. We run different accelerator style programs and events and do things in Canada as well. So you'll often see us in some of the typical spots across Canada: Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton, kind of where I go home to, Calgary, Montreal, sometimes Ottawa. And last year, we launched an angel fund called Women's Equity Lab. It's a model that started out of Victoria, and we use their name as well as their model, but are the first fund outside of Canada. There's about 5 funds in Canada: Vancouver, Toronto, Victoria, Atlantic, and Manitoba. And the difference with Women's Equity Lab, it's all women as LPs on the cap table. And the goal is to get more women on cap tables, as well as to do angel investing by learning. So a lot of the women that are LPs, we have 25 in total, come from maybe an executive background or business background, maybe are in the tech space, but do not invest in this early stage. So we're having a lot of fun with that. We write all the same check size into the fund, and then we make collaborative investment decisions together. So if you're not familiar with Women's Equity Lab and are looking in Canada, the investment is around $5,000 or $6,000 to join as an LP. And it's been just an incredible network as well, an opportunity for us here to build our networks more into angel groups, because we're pretty strong on the venture capital side, but more now on those smaller micro funds that are launching for underrepresented and women's startups as well. So I'll stop there. And if I can be helpful to anybody in the room and to our colleagues, I would love to do so. And because I run events all day long, I'm just going to give a shout out, hopefully to help Setsi and the organization here, is please go on camera if you can. We'd love to see your faces on there versus just names.
Thank you. Candies, can we get an introduction? Oh,
Hello,
yeah.
everyone. My Zoom sometimes has a delay, so apologies with my camera and my microphone. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you. This is my first year being a part of this conference, and so very, very excited to be here and be with you all. So my name is Candice Kotchapaw, and I am the executive director and founder of the nonprofit organization called Developing Young Leaders of Tomorrow Today. I will say a little bit about myself is that I am a social entrepreneur, I'm a community builder, and I'm a lifelong learner. I've been in the nonprofit space now for over 20 years, and I've seen and experienced the inequitable access to resources for small nonprofits, particularly B3, Black-led, Black-serving, and Black-focused organizations, where there has been a challenge to succeed and thrive. And it has been my mission to systematically unveil where these barriers exist for B3 organizations and then provide innovative solutions to address those gaps. So through the organization that I created in 2019, DYLOTT has produced 3 programs. We have an early intervention leadership development program called Lead Like a Girl, and that is for Black girls ages 6 to 17. And we really provide training, education, and mentorship to these girls to get to them before society tells them that they're not able to, or that it is too hard, or it's impossible for them, or that society starts to put them in a box before they recognize their potential. So what we do through that program is we introduce the girls to parliamentary diplomacy, where they learn about how laws are made in Canada through partnerships or mentorship with women senators. They also get to engage in non-traditional sports. So the sport of curling is one that we introduce our girls to and allow them to explore the possibilities of leadership. They learn about the sport itself, as well as the behind the scenes of the sport. So the business of curling, including production, media production, as well as performance management within that sport. And we also introduce them to STEM-based education, which we focus on cybersecurity, robotics, and AI. So the girls really get a chance to learn to be comfortable in the space of STEM-based education. We have a program called the Black Diplomats Academy, which was formed which I created in 2021 to introduce young Black professionals between the ages of 18 to 35 to the space of multilateral diplomacy. And I'm very, very proud to say that last year in 2023, we brought the largest delegation of Black youth to the United Nations in New York for the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. And each year we participate in several United Nations related activities, including the High-Level Political Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, and we advance the representation of people of African descent in decision-making where UN activities around climate change and climate justice is concerned. And we have another program called Co-op to Careers in Cybersecurity, which we are now transitioning to the young Black entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in technology. So, and that program is for elementary and high school students, Black elementary and high school students, to be able to see themselves represented across the spectrum of tech. So I'll leave it there for now.
Wow, that's amazing work. I do believe that the younger generation does need that type of guidance, because I remember when I was in high school, because I have short-term memory, I remember my guidance counselor had told me that I didn't have the mental capacity to apply for university and I should just go to community college. But luckily I have a family support who was able to provide me with that information. And I was just like girl, bye, pretty much. But, you know, I ended up going to university on scholarship. But so it's true, like those type of programs are like, that's amazing work. So we do have one more, Ginelle. Can we get an introduction of yourself, about the remarkable work you're doing?
Good afternoon. I am sitting in my car because I'm just outside of a funeral home. I'm attending a funeral today, so I apologize for being a little bit late to all of you. But it's a delight to be able to talk a little bit about the topic today, about leadership. And so I have many aspects to the things that I can talk about in terms of what I do. So in my private enterprise, I run an enterprise called Adinkra Farm, and we specialize in hosting retreats and opportunities for people of all ages, generations to reconnect with their African heritage. And also we address the need to reconnect with land. And so we're into food security and agricultural opportunities to have people participate in growing their own food. So we, in that regard, we also, as I mentioned, do retreats, rites of passage, reconnecting to African heritage and traditions. We also have a project ongoing with a couple of unions around building a tiny home project to look at housing solutions. So really poverty interventions of all kinds. We're really into that, into working on that and caring for the land itself. In addition, we just got into offering opportunities for organizations to come and do team building, and also for schools to come and do projects. We also run Adinkra Farm Consulting Incorporated, which is a consulting group with my husband and myself as the lead consultants. And we've done events and projects and on a national level, as well as provincial, as well as dealing with nonprofit groups who are just writing their strategic plan, trying to reorient themselves. And we are part of a group called Calabash, which is a consulting group specifically looking at people who are of African descent or people who are from marginalized communities that want to pitch together for large projects and so on in terms of our consulting work. So that's kind of the some of what we do, because we also do camps and different things like that. Then in my day job, I'm the CEO of the York Region Children's Aid Society, and that, as you can imagine, is a pretty busy thing. And so, however, the work on the farm keeps me sane. and the work leading the organization is, well, it's important because we're challenged with disproportionate representation of Black and Indigenous children in care. And so this is a new area for me, because although I've worked in nonprofit leadership for 30 years or so, and then in nonprofit for a little bit longer than that, but not necessarily leadership. This challenge has been a sort of a meeting of the mission that I work on for a Dinka farm, which is one of my passions, around reconnecting and finding ways to affirm our identity as people of African descent, and then also the nonprofit work caring about people who are in crisis and family connections and so on, and looking at the fact that there is a distinct issue of disproportionality for Black families has been a very healing process for me to be involved in it, from almost not from the advocacy side, but now from the ability to actually try and change and transform the sector. So that's a summary of what I'm up to these days. It's a pleasure to see you all.
Thank you, and my condolences to the loss, for your loss. Thank you for even joining the session after going through something so traumatic, because I don't know, funeral homes, it just gets me, I'm out of it after that. No people contact or anything like that. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. As we proceed with the questions, we'll just go for each person. Can you give us, I'll start with Joanne. Can you give us some context on your current role with your organization?
So this again, predominant work that I'm doing is trying to help female entrepreneurs get access to Silicon Valley. So these are largely women that have started something. They might have been through a university accelerator program. They could have gone through another type of program in Canada, like something through DMZ. They could go through Accelerator Center, Mars program, maybe Creative Destruction Labs program, or not. They could have just started something. And the thing that we are pretty passionate about is that, you know, if you want to build something, and we're focused on tech, and tech is quite broad, but most of them are looking to build something that is, you know, bigger than themselves and moves beyond maybe the four walls of, call it Toronto, or I pick on Edmonton, some from there. And maybe want to impact people more globally, then you have to at some point get out of those four walls and be able to find global networks. And so, like I said, I've been here for 25 years, been doing this work for 10. It's a really rich ecosystem, a really supportive ecosystem in tech here. And we focus on helping to plug those entrepreneurs into this network here to help them build relationships. There's lots that want to, you know, obviously access the capital that's here. A third of the world's capital is deployed out of Silicon Valley. But there's just other connection points here. You know, we have a very global mindset, a very big mindset here. You know, the mindset that anything is possible. And again, very much of a giving, collaborative ecosystem. And so you just have lots of humans here that are really wanting to help, especially, you know, women, especially entrepreneurs of color, from the, you know, disadvantaged or underlooked sort of places. And so there's a lot of support that can come here, and the mentorship that's available is phenomenal, because people that have worked here for a couple of years really have a tremendous deep experience set to draw from, and they themselves have deep networks here. So everyone here is really like a great network node to get into a customer, to get into a strategic partnership, to again learn from somebody who's been there, done that, get into some of these angel networks, or even like women's groups or different subsect of groups. There's like a women in climate group that I was recently introduced to that's really phenomenal. There's another one that I'm just getting introduced to called it's like mom entrepreneurs. So any entrepreneur that's a mom too. Like there's just so many subsets of groups and organizations and associations, and just Slack channels that's available. And so we really try to be able to bring that network and those resources and those events and those opportunities to our entrepreneurs, or to entrepreneurs. And then we run a few of our own programs as well. So that's kind of deeply the work that we do and what we're passionate about, and how we're trying to really help lift up the ecosystem of women-led companies.
Thank you. I really do like that mission, that anything is possible, because sometimes you don't feel that, and to have that encouragement, that's great. That's great. Ginelle, can you give us some context on your current role with your organization?
Sure. In terms of coming into children's aid, is that what you're talking about?
I guess you can tell us a bit about both.
Oh, okay. So what's currently happening within the context is that the entire sector is in the midst of redesign or transformation, and they are attempting some of the areas that I was talking about around disproportionality, but looking at the way that we do our work and how we take into account the social determinants of health. So on a larger picture, I think the sector I came into about 2.5 years ago was very focused on policing families and looking at opportunities to, I guess, save children from crisis situations. And now we're looking at the model so that it's more about how do we work with communities and families to create a supportive network around the children and the families so that they don't end up in those crisis situations. So that's a bit of the context for where we are in the sector. So it's actually quite an exciting time to come in with my skill set as a person who's worked in community engagement, community development for many years, worked on poverty issues and all of the social determinants of health. Everything from daycare centers to homeless respites to seniors, and dealing with people who have addictions and mental health issues. So all of those things are causal factors that may cause a family to end up being a client of Children's Aid. So now we're looking at how do we communicate a little bit better as partners to mitigate some of those causal factors together. I think the most exciting opportunity that's happening for us now with the Adinker Farm business is that we're looking at providing opportunities for specific groups to come. So one of our first children is our first child, I should say, one of our first children. Our first child is autistic, on the autism spectrum. And so we're now actually looking at having a conference, a day at Adinker Farm for Black parents of children who face this challenge, because we've experienced it with our son, and we know that there is anti-Black racism built into certain aspects of the structures and systems. And, you know, the waiting lists are already long to get assisted houses and so on. But add to that the issue of a sort of a prejudice, I guess you could call it, around people's racial identity and their ability to deal with these issues. So we're bringing families together. We participated in a film on the topic last year, and some of those families are going to come together, and we're going to have a day of respite at the farm and just talking with other people and giving the autistic children in our families, well, I'd say children, but he's an adult now, he's 41. But, you know, still our child type of thing. And so we're bringing them together to have a day of interacting in nature and maybe playing some African music, some drumming and so on, and getting the families now to talk about creating advocacy networks so that we don't have to, or so that we leave a legacy for other younger parents of children with on the autism spectrum. So that's one exciting thing. And I'll leave you with one last exciting thing that we're planning is the recent news story about the asylum seekers we are having a day, first for the women who are asylum seekers, where it's matching women in our community with women who are in the asylum seekers community who still have not all settled. A lot of them have gotten some help and so on, but some of them are not. So that event is on June the 1st. And right now I'm saying, I think we have more women interested in volunteering than we do women coming. And the beautiful thing about that is that when the women who are refugees heard about it, they said, we want to cook for women who we're going to meet to say thank you to them. And that's not the idea. It's wonderful to see people feel empowered enough to give. And it's one of the most human things that they could do. So we're really looking forward to the entire exchange. And the day will culminate in looking at a resource exchange. So, basically a bartering or an economic exchange of support, not necessarily money, but money is included in the things that women who are volunteering may contribute. So those are two exciting things that are going to be happening pretty soon at the farm.
That's amazing, because it goes with the name, because with our Amakan, so I know that the Adinkra is symbols and it symbolizes our way of life. So you're really just you're doing everything, you're putting it all together. All right, and Danya, can you give us some context on your current role with your organization?
Absolutely. I think I'll start by picking up, Ginelle, on what you said about causal factors. One of the main functions that Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement plays is bringing together place-based partnerships, really led by residents, but supported by business leaders and government leaders and nonprofit and social enterprise leaders, all coming together around issues that matter to the community. And what we've known for a long time, and that what continues to get to the top of my mind, is just how interrelated the issues of racial equity, of economic equity, of education equity, of climate equity are. And so increasingly, I feel like my role at Tamarack is to work with many other amazing women and men and non-binary folks to think about how do we draw upon the interconnections across these related issues so that we can create equitable outcomes and in ways that move us forward on racial equity, climate equity, and economic equity all at the same time. So a lot of our work is really around processes, where we love process at Tamarack. It's all about understanding from local places. How are they bringing people together? How are they keeping people together? How are they, Joanne, to your point, bringing in the resources, the financial resources and other resources that are needed to keep these really robust partnerships in place, and supporting these communities to have their work be visible, and to create conditions that allow them to really move toward education and human services and other systems that work for everyone in the community. So the building of place-based partnerships is really at the core of the work that I do with many, many other people. We also believe deeply in the power of collaboration. And while I really think that the skills of collaboration are embedded deep within each of us, there's something about many of the societies that we live in, at least in the global north, that I think make us forget our collaborative spirit. And so a lot of what we do at Tamarack is creating spaces for people to learn with one another. How do we build collaborative leadership structures? How do we build collaborative government structures? How do we develop deep relationships with community members who we might not naturally come into contact with? How in these moments where it's so easy right now to sort of retreat into communities where we feel most comfortable and where we feel like we share affinity, how do we continue to do that, but also build understanding and keep curiosity and build relationships with people who may come from different experiences. The last thing we do is really around trying to move some of the systems that make it hard for local work to take hold. So increasingly, we're looking for partners to help us understand and work on what do we need to do at the provincial, the territorial, the federal level to create systems that really center community, that really acknowledge that local folks living in their places, know the assets of those places, know the challenges of those places, and often hold the solutions to some of our most intractable problems. We need to create more resource and more attention and more celebration of the amazing work that's happening in local places. I'll just say, you know, my work doesn't happen alone. I have an amazing team. We're 58% women and non-binary folks. Our board is 76% women, and the network that we work with of over 100 communities on Turtle Island and beyond is, I don't have specific numbers on it, but when I scan the relationships that I have in that network, there are amazing women of all ages leading that work within their communities, and very grateful to get to learn from them every day.
You already skipped to the second question I was going to ask about collaboration. You're really ahead of the game.
Sorry.
It's okay. We'll continue on. Ginelle, someone in the comment wanted you to put in the link for the autism event. They have someone that's interested. We will go to Camara. I just wanted if you can give us some context on your current role within your organization.
Hi again, everyone. So my work at the university, Toronto Metropolitan University, is focused on the think tank's leadership development. And so I'll pose a question to the audience. Can you think back in your life of a time when the government changed a law or a regulation and it ended up impacting you directly? So maybe it was something to do with childcare, or maybe like EI or employment subsidies. I know for me personally, I'm an immigrant to Canada, and when I first moved, the various immigration policies only allowed me to stay for 2 years. And there was a point in my time, actually working with Otis again, where I thought that I would have to go back to England because I didn't think I was going to be able to stay. Then there was a change of government at the federal level. There was a change of the policies. And overnight, there was suddenly a new avenue for me to apply to that would allow me to stay here, eventually become a permanent resident, and now become a citizen. And so for us at the Dais, our work is really focused on making recommendations to the government to make sure that their policies are thoughtful, inclusive, considering the future and all Canadians. And my work is specifically focused on helping everyday people have an understanding of how they can impact public policies and the laws that then go on to affect them. We do this in lots of different ways. We lead programs, we have short courses that people can take part in, but we really try to do our best to ensure that the information and the knowledge and the training that we're putting out is relevant and helpful for people, but also information that is of interest as well to folks. So currently, one of the big programs that we've just launched as of yesterday, we're accepting applicants for, is a leadership development program focused on young people better understanding Canada's relationship with America. The US elections are coming up in November. Who knows what will happen there? But regardless of what the outcome is, it will inevitably affect us, given that we have such a strong relationship with America. And so that program is called Can Study US. I'll drop the link in the chat box in a moment. And it's really an 8-week opportunity for young people aged 20 to 35 to sign up to attend a number of panels, all focused on Canada's relationship with the United States. Another example of a program for people who maybe work in tech, we have a micro-credential that's launching in a few weeks that's focused on Canada's digital economy and how we can ensure that as the digital nature of our lives change, the Canada's economy continues to be competitive and continues to grow as well. And that'll be run by one of my colleagues who is an expert in that area. And then finally, a lot of our work that we focus on doing involves bringing people together. So convening is a huge part of our work, and we like to bring together people of various ages, various stages, various sectors to begin to talk about the issues that face us. And we are holding a very large conference with OCAD University. It will be taking place in a couple of weeks on April 11th to 13th, focused on democracy. So from democracy from a global perspective, we have people flying in from around the world to speak about how democracies are changing, what we can do to be actively participating in them. And one thing specifically that we're leading for younger people is an emerging leaders stream, where they'll be able to hear from young people who have made impact and quite large scale impact. And they'll be talking about what they've done, how they did it, and what they'd recommend to other people who want to do it. we'll have people talking about how to have dialogues across difference. Of course, we live in a very polarized world. And in many ways, it can be difficult to have conversations with people who have very extreme views that may not necessarily align with yours. And so we'll be doing training in those sessions around how to have those conversations and how to better listen, but also better converse to find more common ground as opposed to differences.
Oh, wow.
So those are some of the things we do. I'll drop links in the chat box. I mentioned quite a lot there, but we really try to bring people together and ensure that we're awakening that sense of purpose in them, but also that sense of power to impact the situations that they live within.
Great. Thank you for everyone for dropping their link. Everybody seems to be wanting links, so please just make sure if you haven't, place your links at Candies. Can you give us some context on your role within your organization?
Sure. As I mentioned, I'm the founder and executive director of DYLOTT, and we started in Toronto, where actually when we started in Toronto, we had one program called it is called Lead Like a Girl, and that program really kind of gave me a little bit of insight into the space that is Toronto for B3 organizations. There was or seemed to be quite a saturation in Toronto in terms of the types of programming that was being offered, and I felt like there's quite a bit of fighting that our organization had to endure in terms of just being able to carve out a niche for ourselves. And so, when COVID hit, my husband and I, we had two young girls at the time, and we were really thinking, is it possible? Is it sustainable? Is it affordable for us to stay in Toronto? And we ultimately made the decision to move to Windsor. And so moving to Windsor, I quickly realized, even during COVID, that there's a pronounced gap in programs and services that are specifically designed for Black children and youth to pursue high impact careers and gain access to social influence. Yes, so we really realized that there was a pronounced gap in the types of programs and services that are specifically geared to Black children and youth who are looking to enter into high impact careers and gain access to social influence and influential spaces. So really the bulk of the work for us started to happen when we moved to Windsor, and we started to look at what are the prospects for education to employment outcomes for Black young people here, given the fact that there is predominantly a manufacturing city. And so what are the implications for our young people here, our youth of African descent here, when it comes on to their educational and then employment prospects? And so I really started to look at how do we create space? How do we open doors of opportunities for our young people to ensure that they don't feel bewildered when they graduate from post-secondary institutions or they graduate from apprenticeship programs and they're high achievers in those spaces, but when they come towards their career trajectory, they don't have an avenue or an outlet for support to look towards to help them navigate. So what I do on a day-to-day is I lead the operations team here at DYLOTT in the successful implementation of our core stakeholder deliverables. And because the types of programs that we have here, we created, they're so niche, we're actually creating history and legacy at the same time. We're making and experiencing positive systemic change in real time. We say that on a daily basis that we're seeing the influence and impact of our work happening right in front of us as we're doing it. So what we do is we work to address the education to employment outcomes to enable them to to enable our participants not only to survive in the workplace and in the education system, but to thrive in their chosen high impact career trajectory. We do that through education, training, and mentorship. Those are our core components of what we do on a daily basis here at DYLOTT. And we really want to make sure that we're creating a community of support for our young people because historical factors tell us that Black youth are Canada's fastest growing population demographic. They're also the youngest population demographic in this country, just based on Statistics Canada's report in 2021. So our young people really systemically and systematically require a specified and nuanced approach to their success trajectory. And so DYLOTT really pays attention to what that nuanced approach should look like, and we tailor the programs and services we deliver to meet those nuanced needs. I provide thought leadership on economic justice for B3 organizations, as I mentioned, and we're really looking at driving placemaking for our communities in the multilateral diplomacy space. We really want to focus on amplifying Black youth leadership in policy advocacy. And I know Camara talked a little bit about democracy and the changing nature of democracy and polarization and in a lot of ways, the very challenging experience of racialized people in the political space. But we want to bring the attention of the policy implementation possibilities to address social determinants of health for people of African descent. So, the activation of people of African descent in these crucial conversations. We say this quite a bit in our work, that we give policies the legs that they need to work in communities by having young people be the policy activators within their local communities. And we do, how do we do this? We do it through knowledge mobilization on three policy instruments: on the International Decade for People of African Descent, which incidentally, we are in the last year of that decade. It was from 2015 to 2024. And so the Decade for People of African Descent carried three core pillars: recognition, justice, and development. And we really amplified the recognition and development within the work that we do at the DYLOTT, particularly through the Black Diplomats Academy, where we introduce young people to the concept of the work that is being done across multilateral spaces and helping them navigate the barriers that exist, but also the opportunities that exist outside of those barriers through allyship and working closely in collaboration with other partners. We also recognize the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent that was newly formed in 2021, and that work is really through the Black Diplomats Academy as the policy advocacy arm of DYLOTT as an organization. And then we also really amplify the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals have a purpose within the development of our organization and the implementation of our work, but we focus mainly on several goals, particularly SDG 4, which is quality education. And we really drill down on what quality education means and looks like for Black communities. A standard education has adversely affected the employment outcomes of Black young people. So we really look at what types of education, what content our young people have access to, and how that content influences their opportunities for social advancement. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, is a core pillar for the work that we do, because we recognize that our young people are continuously and historically exposed to precarious work. And this is a condition where we want to change that narrative. We want that our young people graduate at the top of their class, or graduate with, knowing that they're excellent, that they're brilliant, that they're able, that they're capable, and that they have the support, the preparation to be able to succeed in their employment of choice. We also look at SDG 9, which is infrastructure, innovation, and industry. And we particularly focus on SDG 9 around the technology, the Industrial Revolution number 4, where we see technology playing such a huge role in everything that we do. Every day, we are influenced or impacted by some form of technology. Even right now, we are brought together because of technology. And so we really want to look at moving our communities from being consumers of technology to producers, and in that way shaping the future that we want to live in. SDG 10 really focuses on reducing inequalities, particularly within communities and within our country, where we know that anti-Black racism continues to present challenges for our young people in terms of just access to the available resources. And so through the work that we do at the early intervention stage with our young girls, to our tech-focused programs for elementary school students and high school students, to the young professionals level for our Black Diplomats Academy, we really look at how do we navigate and mitigate the barriers that exist, the inequities and inequalities that exist that our young people face, and how do we give our young people the tools to successfully navigate those challenges. We also focus on SDG 17, which is partnerships to achieve the goals. And one of our major success points is building partnerships across various sectors. So whether it be with civil society organizations, most of us here are represented in that sector, to corporate institutions, to government, to academia, we really see that every single sector, every single industry plays such an integral part in helping us overcome, and us as in each of us here, overcome the barriers that exist against our advancement. So a lot of the work that we do continues to be about collaboration. It's about where each piece in the puzzle fits and how we bring mutual value to the table, how we ensure that our future is secure, but also that the work that we're doing in the present is contributing to a sustainable future for our young people that are here now and for those who are coming behind us. So I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. You guys are doing amazing work. Just because, wow, just due to time, I'm just gonna go to the next question. We are literally just scratching the surface, and we honestly need you ladies to come back, because I feel like there's so much more that we can discuss and go into in regards to, you know, everything that you guys are doing and the amazing work that you guys are doing. So Joanne, how do you feel about the future of gender justice and equality in Canada? And do you have any closing remarks or any call to action?
My lens is into Canada, since I work with entrepreneurs there. I come into Canada quite a bit, but I'm not there every day. So I see more so about what's happening maybe here in California in particular. And I don't know that it's different. I recently spoke about this as well, and I think overall what I see is a positive change happening, and you just look around this room and it's a great example of it. And I think it's so vital that these kinds of forums are happening and coming together, because I wouldn't have known about the work that everybody else is doing on this. It provides so many opportunities for us to think about synergies and ways we can collaborate and promote and support. So I think that is really a positive movement. We're still seeing a lot of and hearing about a lot of check boxes that are happening versus organizations that I think really know how to move the needle when it comes to diversity and pay equity and, equality and belonging. So that's just a longer process, because those are just deep-rooted systems that are difficult to change. And, I have seen firsthand where there's you know, people within these organizations that are just, they literally, because they're, you know, maybe more homogeneous and in it for so long, they don't know what to do. So I'm very hopeful because I am, you know, more of a positive. I guess in closing comments, I would say that moving that big rock and making that big sea change is something that we can all be a part of. And I think all of the work that we're doing is so important to do that and to celebrate these little, you know, maybe micro pieces that we're doing, because collectively it really does help move the needle, but it's just going to take us and so much more of us to continue to do it. So, you know, again, thank you to bringing us all together. Let's do more of these. Let's make sure that we're really supporting each other, amplifying each other's work, making connections. That's what I love about this community is, again, it's also one that is here to help lift everybody up and not try to have this you win and I lose scenario or vice versa. So yeah, and thank you for having me, hearing my voice in this.
Oh no, it's an honor, and honestly, we have to pay attention to those small goals to actually make you know that you're reaching your main goal. So you always need to remind yourself, and that's actually really good. Ginelle, do you have any closing remarks or any call to action?
Yeah, I would piggyback on the need to keep talking, collaborating, and to do so on an international level. Because I think, you know, we feel very isolated working in our little pods sometimes and on our issues. And many of the times, I think if we did reach out and connect, even we have a habit, and I think it's probably, we can probably blame Henry Ford. Let's blame Henry Ford for assembly line and specialization, because I think we have organized ourselves that way, that we have this tunnel vision. We do one thing, but the more we talk about the intersectional issues that we have, not only as different racialized communities, but as just within the community of women, right? And I think we can empower ourselves. And having just celebrated International Women's Day and seen a lot of information flying, you know, mindful of the fact that this celebration of international, I don't know what it is, a celebration, an observance. I was in a meeting with Dr. Jean Augustine, and she was able to talk about the first time that certain goals were set to eliminate the pay equity imbalance by this year. So we're not there, but it was 2024, and this was back in 1980 something. So she talked about that, and she talked about the progression of and how we came to celebrate International Women's Day. And I wish I had a tape recorder so that I could have remembered to repeat it to you. But let's just say it was such a journey that we got to look at women's issues on an international level. So the more conversations that we can have like this about work that we can do together and work that is already ongoing that we can support, I think it's going to help us propel the situation for women, and therefore for everyone affected by us, because, you know, they talk about if you address the issues that women are having, you're addressing the entire community.
Yeah.
So I think we need to own that. And so then I'll get spiritual and put a little plug in for the fact that we play a particular role, as does Mother Earth in our own belief system, as the givers of life and the nurturers, right? And I know that those things have been devalued by the patriarchal kind of frame, but really they are where our power lies. And so I think that if we remember our power to create and sustain and nurture life, we also have that power to create and sustain and nurture our projects, right? And bring people in. And it's about time we are listened to. And that's about it. That's what I'll say for us as women. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. That was powerful. Camara, do you have any closing remarks or any calls to action?
Just to say that I think we've got a much longer way to go when it comes to equality for women. I think it's important to remember that Canada ranks as 64th in the world for women's representation in national parliaments. And in our media, which we obviously take in a lot of and consume a lot of, women are only quoted less than a third of the time. So we're constantly not being remembered and not being placed in a position of equal power. So I do hope that will change. I think in terms of calls to action, I love how everyone has spoken about collaboration. I think that's so important. I think as individuals, I think we can remember when we are expecting women to take on a much more of the emotional labor, whether it's in the workplace or in other areas of our life. I see that happening time and time again. And then I think just constantly calling out calling out points of inequality as and when we see them. I think that's always so important.
Thank you. I'd even go with the collaboration because all of you guys answered it so beautifully. So I just skipped that. Candies, do you have any closing remarks, any call to action?
For sure. So I'm going to also continue on that train of collaboration, and I'll share a not quite as profound as Abina just shared, but something that was shared by an entrepreneur last year in an event that I was able to attend, and he mentioned that collaboration beats competition every single time. And so I absolutely want to echo that sentiment, to say that collaboration beats competition every single time. And I think the strength and the success of the work that we all do here is the fact that we look for the things to celebrate within each other's work, right? There's so much diversity here, and such important work that is happening here that we need to take time to celebrate and to recognize, yes, we reach different people because we're located differently, our experiences are all different, but the influence and the impact that we bring to the table is so significant that, when we come to fora like this, we need to take even 30 seconds to acknowledge and celebrate the excellence that we all bring to the table. So my call to action here is let's celebrate each other's work. Let's amplify, let's make visible the instrumental and the systematic and the systemic change that is epitomized in this room and in this space. And let's just continue to be bold, to be fearless, to be brave in the change making that we're doing, and just continue to be unapologetically beautiful in what we bring to the table.
Oh, okay, that's lovely. And Danya, do you have any closing remarks or any call to action?
I just want to take a pause, Candies, on what you just shared. That was amazing. Thank you. I'll just end with my good friend and former mentor, Dr. Adrienne Johnson-Williams in Memphis, Tennessee, introduced me to the idea that resources and relationships are what get us to transformational results. Resources and relationships get us to transformational results. I'm hopeful about the future of gender equity and justice on Turtle Island because we know the results that we need. I'm hopeful because we are building the relationships through the kind of collaboration that's been so present in this conversation. And because we have, I think, more resources than we've ever had before. We don't have perfect data describing the scope of the inequities in front of us, but we do have data. We have examples, including many of the ones that folks on this call have raised up, of what we need to do to get to the kind of equity that we need. And we have rich skill sets across this country. So we have the resources, we're building the relationships, we know the results that we need. And so I'm hopeful on that. In terms of calls to action, maybe I'll just be specific on two brief ideas. The first is that as I look around who's in this room right now, I don't know all of you, but the ones I know here are all incredible sponsors. The people who are in this room that I know are all brilliant at connecting different people to each other, and building really broad and deep networks. And I think we have to keep sponsoring one another, connecting one another, not just sharing, but really providing access to the relationships and other resources that we have. The other thing is I'm really inspired by all of these stories. And I think that good storytelling is so important right now. When we can make the possibilities in front of us, and when we can make the examples of what's strong really resonate with people by being specific and centering the role that people have played in those stories. I think that's really powerful. I have a long way to go personally on that, but I look forward to hearing more of everyone's good stories. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I guess the key takeaway for me today was collaboration. And I definitely, Setsi, please make sure that you have these women here again. I feel like we just scratched the surface, and I know due to time, you guys are doing remarkable work, and we so appreciate your time and your remarkable leadership. And hopefully we get to do this again over and over until we get to our goal that we want to reach. And as we close, the way we began this interview, by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for Setsi for making me moderate. You guys are so inspirational. And I guess we will see you guys tomorrow if you are joining the conference tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.